guys, NerdSpawn27 here, and welcome to another edition of Jojo Part 4 Anime Manga Comparison. Today I'll be covering episode 6 of Diamond Is Unbreakable, so once again, spoiler alert if you haven't read the manga or watched the episode itself. Episode 6 covers the second half of chapter 284 and chapters 285 to 288 from volume 31. This arc was actually hinted at during the ending song with Koichi inside his home with his mom and sister, but I'll talk about that later. Right now, there's something else that really needs to be addressed. You know, elephant in the room and all. And it's about Tamami Kobayashi. Now, in his anime debut, he was a short man for a 20-year-old, even though he looks like he's in his 30s or 40s. But he was a little bit taller than Koichi, but still shorter than Josuke and Okiyasu. Now, when he called them little brats, I just assumed that Tamami had some sort of Napoleon complex, but there's more to it. In his manga debut, which was kind of hard to tell with some of the angles and some panels, but I was able to see that he was a lot taller than Koichi. He's still shorter than Josuke and Okiyasu, but still tall enough to look like he's an average height for his age, I think. Then suddenly at the end of chapter 288, he shrunk to the same size as Koichi. Hell, Koichi looks shorter than he does in the anime. I'm not sure when the size change happened, but it could have been when Koichi's stand hatched out of the egg, during the fight when Tamami was being affected by the multiple echoing sounds, or after his defeat when Koichi saved his mom. But what I want to know is, why? Why did this change happen suddenly during this arc? Maybe Araki wanted to use Tamami as a representation of a huge obstacle for Koichi to go through, and making him small, showing that he managed to overcome it. Or maybe Araki wanted to make him more of a threat, making him a bit taller, and shrink when he loses, acting all pathetic. I don't really know, honestly. Anyway, because of the height change, David's production had to use the short character design for Tamami. Oh, and fun fact, Tamami's stand The Lock is named after the song The Rock by The Who. Alright, with that crucial change out of the way, let's move on. With the animation and artwork used on this episode, you can tell that David's production was having fun with it, giving the episode more of a funky and kind of flashy style to it. For example, there is the graffiti on the bench and the graffiti on the road. Don't ask me if the names on the road mean anything because I don't know. But I did notice that the arrows from the graffiti on the road were pointing to the same spot where Tamami would hit his head on the curb. Although I don't know why there were scenes involving ants going over the blood or being soaked with blood, but I guess it doesn't really matter, I'm not sure. But at the beginning of the episode, there was the radio host from Moriocho Radio mentioning about the King of Terror, which he was referring to a prophecy by Nostradamus. In the year 1999, in the 7th month, a great leader of terror will rain out of the sky. Now, this wasn't mentioned in the chapters in this arc, but it was mentioned briefly on the first chapter of Diamond Is Unbreakable. But the reason I mention this is not because of that, but because of the name of one of the repliers, which is R.I.P. Big Bro. Gee, I wonder who that could be. Anyway, back with the artwork. When you compare various scenes from the episode to the panels from the manga, I'm using the color scanlations by the way, the episode looks more unique, making the panels from the manga look more, plain. Look, I like Araki's art style too, but the anime used a lot of color, shapes, and style to make it stand out more than the manga. No pun intended. Here, I'll show you another example to prove it. Here is the scene with Tamami explaining what he ate at the restaurant in both the episode and the manga. The restaurant's name, by the way, is Johnny's, and the scene in the episode not only used a distinct color choice, but the restaurant's name appears on the table, and there were stars on the floor. Now, with the name Johnny and the stars, it made me think that this was a reference to the Part 7 main character Johnny Joestar, who, fun fact, Koichi's voice actor Yuki Kaji voiced him in the video games. But I was told that this scene was a reference to Jonathan's, a real restaurant chain in Japan and one of Araki's favorites. I also heard that he named Part 1 main character Jonathan Joestar after the restaurant. Hell, even the receipt looks more stylish in the episode than in the manga. No joke. Anyway, with the lock, whenever Tamami guilt trips Koichi or his mom, it just appears in the manga. And whenever the stand deactivates, it just disappears. But in the episode, the effects used for the lock appearing and disappearing made the stand look a bit cooler. Like, whenever the stand appears in the anime, it grows out of the chest with a metal bar locking it in place with a red aura surrounding it. When it disappears, the stand unlocks and is destroyed into tiny red bits. It also has the kanji for money on the lock, representing Tamami's goal, conning people for money. Oh, and Josuke's line at the beginning. That kid hangs out with shady looking characters all the time. Dude, like you're one to talk? And that goes for you, Okuyasu. Still, Josuke does have a point with Koichi, and I can't help but feel like Tamami's not gonna be the last one. Now, I still believe that the lock is an effective stand when used properly, but that's only if you're able to make your target feel guilty. So you'd have to be a really good manipulator for the stand to work. There's been debate on whether or not it's a lame stand, but honestly, I don't think it is. I mean, there's still a shit ton of stands to go through in this part as well as the next 4 parts, and I'm sure that there are stands in this series that are going to be way lamer than the lock. Now, as usual, there was some dialogue left out from the manga in the episode. For example, the conversation between Tamami and Koichi's mom when Tamami was rubbing her shoulders was extended, showcasing more on how much of a liar he is. There was even a scene in the manga when Koichi was reaching for the phone, desperate to call for Josuke to help. Seeing this, Tamami berates him for having to rely on him and not do anything himself. Now, I was curious as to why that was left out in the episode, but I think it's because to showcase more on Koichi's character change and to showcase more of his bravery and him becoming more independent, especially since this is his first ever stand battle. Speaking of which, the fight between Koichi and Tamami was really well done in the episode. Some fans wanted Koichi's hair to be blonde, which I now understand why, and it's because of that moment when Koichi's hair gets spiky and his stand aura appears, making him look like he's going Super Saiyan. But either way, the effect was still really cool to see. Now, here's another fun fact. Koichi's character was actually inspired by Gohan, and his stand does resemble Imperfect Cell from Dragon Ball Z. Anyway, with the fight, one of the best things the anime was able to adapt from the manga, making it look much better, was Koichi's stand ability. The animation used for the echoing sounds on Tamami was really good, but the best use of the animation on the stand ability was when his stand created the words Shinjite, which means believe me or believe in me, and throws them on his mom with the words echoing within her. The animation and the echoing Shinjite sounds was really well done. Now, in terms of censorship, not much can be said about it. There were moments where the art style and the colors would change in the episode whenever some scenes show a lot of blood, but the one I really want to point out is the scene when Tamami stabs himself. Now, the cut was shallow, but it was enough to produce plenty of blood. However, in the manga, Tamami's cut looked a lot bloodier than in the episode. Then again, I noticed that whenever there's blood from cuts and wounds, Araki used this visual effect that blood would squirt out of the injury or the person. Now, there was also another piece of dialogue that was left out from the manga, and it was after when Koichi's stand hatched out of its egg. I guess it was left out from the episode in order to make it seem like Koichi's getting the hang of using his new stand, but he's inexperienced, hence the dialogue he had when he was talking about how to use his stand, reflecting upon what Josuke told him before back during their confrontation against Keicho and his stand Bad Company. In fact, Koichi's the first character shown in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to have little experience with using a stand. Well, there was also Jotaro in part 3 with Star Platinum, but he had at least Joseph and Avdol explain to him about stands, and he seemed to have a better and quicker understanding on how his stand works, especially during his earlier fights with Dio's minions, and with Dio himself with that freaking time stop ability. But in Koichi's case, he's still learning during his fight with Tamami, and it shows more in the manga. Now, I have to talk about Koichi's stand, which I will mention some things about it based on my knowledge from the video games. This hasn't been reached in the anime yet, so anime only watchers, you have been warned again, so Yeah? Now, Koichi Stan's name was revealed in the title of the episode as Reverb, but this was a change due to copyright courtesy of Crunchyroll. The stand's true name is Echoes. It's actually the first incomplete stand in the series so far because of the arrow and Koichi's latent stand potential. When Echoes hatched out of the egg, it looked more like a lizard larvae creature, a baby stand if you will. So because of Echoes being incomplete, is this its true form? Well, no, not really. Thanks to the video games, I was aware that Koichi's stand will have different forms because it can evolve. So that means that Koichi's stand at this moment hasn't reached its full potential yet. That also means that Echoes will evolve into something else, but I don't know when. I also don't know if its stand ability will change, but again, it's something that we'll wait and see. So once again, this was another really well done adaptation to the 4.5 chapters of the manga. As I mentioned before, you can tell how much effort they've put onto the art style and animation on the adaptation, plus you can also tell that they were having fun with it. Plus, I appreciated that we got an arc that focused more on a supporting character and less on the main character, Josuke, especially when it's Koichi. I mean, he was so cool in his first ever stand battle. It made me like the character more and more and showed how he's grown and changed so far. But considering what I mentioned before, his character still has plenty more growth to do as well as a stand, which I'm looking forward to seeing. And besides, Josuke, Okuyasu, and now Koichi are my new favorite trio of characters in Diamond Is Unbreakable so far. I would say quadruple because Jotaro, but he's still in the background investigating the whereabouts of the bow and arrow, so it's trio for now. And you know what? Speaking of Jotaro, are we ever gonna have him participate in another battle again? I mean, he did participate with Angelo, but his stand didn't get a lot of action. So I'm wondering if he's going to have like his own individual fight in Diamond Is Unbreakable, which I would be okay with, or at least see him support the characters with his stand. Just anything so that I can see Star Platinum again in action, you know, give us like one more Star Platinum Order beatdown just like old times, you know? So yeah, that's also another thing that I'm looking forward to Diamond Is Unbreakable if it does happen. Please. For old time's sake, you know? Anyway, the next episode is going to be another one-episode arc called Toshikazu Hazamada Show Off, or Toshikazu Hazamada's Surface. They changed Surface to Show Off? Why? Okay, whatever. So yeah, judging from the title, the new enemy stand user is going to be Toshikazu Hazamada, and his stand is called Surface. I'm actually curious as to what this stand is going to be, and I'm actually hoping that it is going to be a lot better than the lock. Not saying that the lock is lame, but I wonder if Surface is going to be a lot better than the lock. And from what I was told, this next enemy stand user, Toshikazu, is way more messed up than Tamami. Sadly, I was also told on one of the things that he did, but I won't tell you guys because I don't want to spoil it for you all on what he did. But let's just say that it's really weird and really fucked up. Anyway, that's it from this anime manga comparison to episode 6 of Diamond Is Unbreakable. If there's anything I missed or anything you want to discuss, feel free to do so in the comment section below. And if you like what you've seen so far, be sure to like and subscribe. As always, I'm LunarsPyLum27, and I'll see you all back on Jojo Friday. Later. Okay, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but the scene when Tamami was sitting on that graffiti bench, some of the letters were hidden, but you can tell what that word is trying to say. Poser. Ha! It's funny because it's true. Tamami is a fucking poser. But seriously though, my opinion still stands on this guy. Fuck this asshole.